Hello and welcome back. This is 14.5, the effect of temperature on reaction rate. We're actually going to do some quick going over of some of this information because it's no longer included on the AP exam, but it's good to talk about in case you have to see it in college. So the effect of temperature on reaction rate, this brings us to the Arrhenius equation, which is right down here, this K equals. So basically the temperature dependence on reaction rate is contained in the rate constant, which is K. So that's why we can solve for K here using our Arrhenius equation. Usually an increase in temperature increases the rate of reaction. There's some times when it doesn't. Just some labels for these. R is our gas constant. This is what we're going to use is 8.314. That's the gas constant that we're using. Frequency factor is a number between 1 and 0, and it's how many times we're having successful collisions. Activation energy, this is probably the first time we've seen activation energy, but it's the amount of energy it takes to get the reaction going, if you will, and we'll talk more about it in this graph down below. Temperature is obviously very simple, and it's in Kelvin. All right, so the activation energy and frequency factor, aka exponential factor, what I really wanted to look at was I wanted to really look at this graphic here. And this is an important graphic because this is something we're going to use and you're going to have to be able to understand on an AP test. So what we have here is over here, we've got our reactant, which is CH3-N and a triple bond there. And what it's going to is this is our product here. So if we were to write this reaction, we have H3C, and remember it's just written out like this so we can see what the bonds are doing. And it's going to, basically all it's doing is rearranging the N and the C. All right? So that's our overall reaction, but what we have here is what is called an activated complex. This is a very high energy state, thus the hump, if you will. The high energy state, and this high energy state is the amount of energy it takes to get up there is called the activation energy, which is very important because that's, if we don't have enough energy to get over that hump, it's just like when you're playing mini golf and you have that hill. If you don't have enough energy to get the ball over that, it won't go over and you will never put the ball in the hole. All right. The other part of this graphic that is really cool is you can see delta H on here. Delta H is just the difference in your energy of reactants and products, which makes sense because we learned last semester in thermo that delta H is equal to, very simply, products minus reactants, right? So delta H there, with the products being at a lower energy than the reactants, that means energy is given off, right? And so this is an exothermic reaction, all right? So looking here, this is a key point. The higher the activation energy, the slower the reaction rate. So let's talk about the frequency factor. This is the number of approaches to the activation energy barrier per unit time. So basically, how often is it colliding? Our exponential factor, we're going to kind of glaze through this. If you want to read it on your own time, you're welcome to. But basically, a low activation energy and a high temperature makes the negative exponent small, so the exponential factor approaches 1. So if we have a high activation energy and a low temperature, obviously, we're not going to have a very fast reaction. High activation energy and low temperature. That means the activation energy is really large, so we have a lot of energy to be taken there, and it takes a lot of energy to do that. And then we also have to have it going there. So high activation energy and a low temperature means that we're not going to have very much of a reaction happening. So let's talk about thermal energy distribution. I believe in the fall we saw a Maxwell-Boltzmann curve, all right, and that's where our energy of our substances or our fractional molecules, and we talked about how it shifts as the energy goes up. So the shaded in area over here is the area where those are the ones above the activation energy. I'm going to allow you to read this summarizing temperature and reaction rate on your own. So all of that is part of the Arrhenius equation, which the Arrhenius equation has been removed from the AP exam. But we can actually rearrange the Arrhenius equation to give us a line, so we could have a linear relationship also. And here is another form of the Arrhenius equation. This is just talking about two reaction rates, so two reactions at different temperatures. So you could either find K or you could find the other temperature. So it's really kind of cool. We're going to skip this example because, again, it's not on the AP exam. We want to spend our time talking about the collision model. The collision model is basically a model that says you have to have enough energy collision between two reactant molecules. So, in theory, frequency factor should be the number of collisions that occur per second, but it isn't. Why do you suppose that is? Well, if you looked ahead, you can see that part of it is orientation factor. So we have to look at our orientation factor. That makes a difference, right? If they're not lined up, so if we look down here, here's our reaction. NaCl plus NaCl gives us 2NO and Cl2. If they are hitting with our Ns lined up, that's not effective. Or our N and our Cl, that's also not effective. But if our two Cls are hitting, that gives us an effective collision, breaking off the Ns and the Os. So orientation factor is one part of it. And so if we have an individual atom, that means nothing attached to it. We really have high orientation factors, really close to 1, because there's no way, nothing for them to line up, right? They're already lined up. There's one atom, all right? It doesn't have to rotate for it to fix. The other part of the collision model is collision frequency. How often are the molecules colliding? So how does a chemical reaction occur? What has to happen? So first, we have to have a collision, right? We must have a collision. If we don't have a collision, it won't work. Second, the energy of that collision must be high enough. So we're looking at getting over that E sub A or that activation energy hump. And the third thing is they have to be lined up correctly. Again, or no collision. They're just bumping off of each other and going on to the next one. So let's check this out. Our last part here, the conceptual connection. Which reaction do you expect to have the smallest orientation factor? Smallest orientation factor, and why? Smallest. So we're talking about, when we talk about orientation factor, we're talking about, are they lined up properly? Smallest, which means the least positives. What do you suppose that would be? If you're guessing C, you are correct. All right, C is correct. All right, and that is because there are two molecules. We have an H and a Cl, and an H and a Cl, and they have to be lined up correctly for this reaction to occur. All right, see you next time.